It was Monday afternoon. I was wrapping up my half-eaten sandwich at the office when my phone rang. It was my mom calling. I answered, and her voice came through sharp and fast like she'd rehearsed the script in her head. "Jennifer, can you come a little early this weekend? Around 3 on Saturday. And don't forget to bring the ivory tablecloth set. The one with the lace trim." I frowned, tightening my grip on the paper coffee cup in my hand. "What's going on, Mom?" "It's the party for Evan's promotion. He got appointed as regional supervisor," she said, like it was something I should have already known. I paused, confused. "You mean, we're hosting a party this weekend?" "That's right," she replied, still calm and matter-of-fact. "Mostly Evan's friends and colleagues. His new boss will be there too. It needs to look presentable." I straightened in my chair. "So, am I invited?" There was a silence. Then she spoke slowly, as if choosing her words carefully. "Well, I didn't think you'd be comfortable at this kind of event. It's mostly business people, talking sales and figures. You know, it's not really your crowd." I pressed my lips together. "But you still want me to come set the table." "Exactly," she chirped, like it was perfectly normal. "Jennifer, no one arranges things as neatly as you do. You've got an eye for detail, don't deny it. I just need help setting up the food, placing the candles, arranging the plates nicely. You don't have to stay if you don't want to." I closed my eyes. There was a lump in my throat, but I forced my voice to stay even. "Okay, what time do you want me there?" 3. Don't be late. Oh, and if you're near the store, grab a pack of the thick paper napkins, just in case we run out." I pushed out a smile she couldn't see over the phone. "Sure, I'll take care of it." "Perfect. You're always my lifesaver. I don't know what I'd do without you." Then she hung up. No goodbye, no thank you. I sat there for a while, staring at my phone's dark screen. Her words kept playing over and over in my head, like a cheap recording. Not invited, not considered a guest, yet expected to show up like some volunteer help, and somehow, I was supposed to be grateful, to be trusted with that role. My name is Jennifer. I'm 34 years old. I live alone in a small apartment in Tacoma, Washington. About a 25-minute drive from my parents' house. I moved out 7 years ago, thinking that distance might help me feel less like a forgotten shadow. But every time there's a family event, whether it's a birthday, Christmas dinner, or something special for Evan, my younger brother, that shadow gets pulled back into the room, standing in the middle of the noise and dirty dishes, never bright enough to be seen. Evan is 2 years younger than me and currently works as a regional manager for a retail chain. My mom calls that an outstanding achievement. And me? I'm a legal secretary. Stable. Debt-free. But to them, I'm just the one who can fold napkins neatly and preheat the oven on time. They don't see me as family. I'm the helping hand that keeps things running, only to disappear before the party starts. And I party it. I'm tired of pretending that doesn't hurt. I still remember my 29th birthday like it was yesterday. Mom said it happened to fall on the same day as Evan's important meeting in Portland, so the family decided to throw a small party. Without me. When I called to ask, she casually said, "The atmosphere wouldn't suit you anyway, but could you come the day before to prep the cake?" I made a 3-layer strawberry mousse cake, piped white icing letters, and left before the guests arrived. They called it behind-the-scenes support. I called it being politely excluded. 3 years later, I was still brought up at gatherings like that. When they needed someone to color-match flower arrangements, adjust the candles on the table, or clean up broken dessert plates. But never once was I invited as an honored guest, or even just as a family member deserving equal treatment. I used to convince myself I was doing something good, that maybe my family just had trouble showing affection, but they cared in their own way. But the older I got, the more I saw it clearly. I was never their first choice. I was the fallback. Called in when things needed to be put together nicely. Tuesday night, I got back to my apartment just as the sky turned gray. Car horns mixed with the soft patter of rain hitting the balcony's metal roof. I tossed my bag on the couch and opened the mailbox. Inside was an ornate invitation from Aunt Laurel, my mom's younger sister, inviting me to her daughter's wedding next month. Jennifer, be sure to wear something stunning and come as an honored guest. Can't wait to see you. I stared at the line, suddenly choking up. Same family, such a strange difference in how I'm treated. I made a cup of hot tea, opened my laptop, intending to check work emails, but instead clicked on an old folder labeled Family. Inside were hundreds of photos I'd taken at big holidays. But I was hardly in any of them. I was the one behind the camera, the one cleaning up, the one handling logistics, never the one being seen. One photo made me freeze. Last year's Thanksgiving. Mom was in the living room smiling with a glass of wine. Evan stood beside her, arm around his fiancée, everyone raising their glasses. And me? I was crouched down, picking up shards from a plate Evan had dropped. My face was hidden behind the table's edge. No one remembered I'd cooked the entire meal that year. Or that I was the first to arrive and the last to leave. I set my teacup down, a heavy weight pressing on my chest. I'd never felt my invisibility so sharply. The next morning, Mom texted, "Don't be late Saturday, Clara. Evan's HR director is really detail-oriented. Can you help tidy the lilies on the banquet table too?" I read the message, bit my lip and replied, "Sure, I'll remember." A small lie, but a necessary one. Because this time, I wasn't coming to fix flowers. I spent all Wednesday afternoon looking for a small restaurant in Spokane, the one I'd stumbled upon during a work trip 3 years ago. Quiet, warm lighting, and a grilled salmon with lemon honey sauce I'd always wanted to try again. Table for one, 6:30 p.m. on Saturday. By the window, I hit confirm reservation and felt a surprising lightness inside. That night, I dreamed I walked into my parents' house holding a large bouquet of flowers, but everyone just glanced past me. Evan was talking about his latest project. Mom was arranging pastries. Dad had the sports channel on. I stood there in the middle of the noise, then slowly turned and walked out. The flowers slipped from my hands to the floor like they never existed. When I woke up, it was morning. Friday. One day until the party. I opened my closet, pulled out an olive green dress I hadn't worn in years and laid it across the chair. I wasn't bringing the tablecloth. Or the lilies. I was preparing for my own evening, for the first time in years. Not for Evan. Not for Mom. But for me. Saturday arrived faster than I expected. That afternoon, the air was crisp. A light breeze drifted through the third-floor window of my apartment, carrying the scent of dry leaves and the moisture left behind by the morning rain. I sat at my vanity, holding a mascara wand, almost forgetting what I was doing. When was the last time I got ready for something that wasn't a family event? Maybe April's wedding? An old coworker? Nearly 2 years ago? Every time since, if I wore lipstick at all, it was just to avoid looking pale while carrying trays or pouring drinks. But today was different. I chose the olive green dress with the simple V-neck, flattering without being fussy. Paired with beige low heels and a striped scarf I'd bought in August but never wore. Looking at myself in the mirror, I felt strange. Like I was putting on a new skin. Not the obedient daughter, not the ever-punctual helper. But me. A woman creating a moment just for herself. At 5:40, I stepped out of the car, clutching a small purse, and took a deep breath. Willow Creek was tucked behind a row of small roadside shops, its porch lined with golden lanterns and a wooden sign hanging slightly askew on the left. Inside, the lighting was soft, jazz music hummed from a ceiling speaker, and the scent of toasted bread and basil made me wish time would stop right there. I walked up to the host stand and smiled. "Hi, I have a reservation for one Jennifer." The host smiled back and gestured toward a gravel-lined path. "You're a little early, but your table's ready, right this way." My table was by the window, looking out at a small park across the street where a few families were walking their dogs. A glass of water and a neatly folded menu sat on a crisp white tablecloth. I sat down, silenced my phone, and placed it face down on the table. I didn't want to know how many missed calls there were, not tonight. The server returned with a bottle of red wine and 2 glasses. "Would you like a glass of Pinot Noir from the Willamette Valley?" I nodded. "Yes, thank you, and I'll have the pan-seared salmon with lemon dill sauce." She smiled. "Excellent choice. I'll bring your starter shortly." I leaned back slightly in my chair. Candlelight shimmered on the tabletop like water. In that moment, I felt myself become solid. Not for anyone else. Not for Evan. Not for Mom. But for me. Jennifer. 34. Learning to put herself first. When the salmon was placed in front of me, I could hardly believe my eyes. Vibrant colors, delicate presentation, with thin lemon slices laid gently over a pale ivory sauce. The scent? Butter, black pepper, dill? Felt like a door opening into a world I used to think belonged to other people. I cut a small piece, brought it to my mouth, and let the rich flavor unfold slowly. And surprisingly, I found myself smiling for real. Somewhere just a few blocks away, my mother was probably pacing the dining room, fussing over unlit candles or crooked napkins, and Evan was likely still adjusting his tie in the mirror instead of helping. And me? I wasn't there. They had to manage without me. I was taking a sip of wine when my phone buzzed quietly on the table. A message popped up. "Mom. Jennifer, where are you? Why aren't you here yet?" I stared at the message, feeling strangely calm. Not angry, not guilty, just quiet. Like I had closed a chapter simply by not replying. When dessert arrived, a slice of chilled lemon cake topped with whipped cream and citrus zest, I decided to order a mint tea and stay a while longer. Because I wanted to. Not because someone was waiting. Not because someone needed me as a prop. As I stood up to pay, handing my credit card to the server, she tilted her head and smiled. "Did you have a good evening?" I answered, voice soft as a breath. "Even better than I hoped," and stepped outside, letting the night breeze carry the scent of vanilla gently across my shoulders. At the suburban house in Spokane, the afternoon sunlight had begun to soften, slipping through the large dining room windows. Helen, my mother, was still bustling around the dinner table, her heels clacking against the hardwood floor. 4:15. She glanced at the clock for the 4th time in less than 5 minutes. "Why isn't she here yet?" she muttered, pulling out her phone to call again. The call rang for a while, then went to voicemail. She clenched her phone, lips tightening. "Jennifer, you said you'd be here by 3. The tablecloth hasn't been ironed, the candles aren't set, the appetizers are still in the fridge. Call me back right now." In the kitchen, my dad Gary was arranging plates on the island, his voice calm but strained. "Maybe she's on her way. Got stuck in traffic?" Evan came down the stairs with a crooked tie and a soda in hand. "Or she forgot," he shrugged. "Wouldn't shock me. Jennifer's always got that 'I don't need anyone' attitude, but when push comes to shove, she's nowhere to be found." Mom snapped her head around to glare at him. "Don't pour gasoline on this. It's your party, Evan. Maybe try helping. Light some candles? Fix the salad plates?" Evan shrugged again and headed straight to the patio, where a few of his coworkers were already sipping wine and chatting. In the kitchen, the appetizer tray hadn't been brought out. Bouquets of flowers still sat in buckets by the sink. Helen was visibly unraveling. She was always particular about details, and when Evan's professional crowd was involved, she cared more about appearances than anything else. She turned to her husband. "Gary, help me fold the napkins. I told Jennifer to be here early. Who knew she'd pull this?" Gary sighed. fumbling through a drawer. Each napkin was a different color. None matched the candles already on the table. Then her phone buzzed again, a message from me. "Mom, I'm sorry, I'm busy tonight, I won't make it." Just one line. No punctuation. No explanation. No prior warning. She froze for a few seconds, then dialed immediately. 3 rings, then it cut off. The screen read coldly, "Unavailable." She set the phone down on the table, staring blankly. "She's not coming." Gary stopped folding and looked up. "Not coming? What do you mean?" She repeated herself, this time her voice trembling. "She texted. Said she's busy. She's not coming." I pictured it clearly while sitting in the restroom of Willow Creek, where the lighting was soft, and the faint scent of lavender came from a small glass jar on the shelf. I had just read her message, and placed my phone face down on the sink. My hands trembled slightly. Not from fear, but from adrenaline still coursing through my veins. I had never openly refused like this. Never? The next text came from Evan. Classic Evan. "You serious? Leaving Mom to spin in circles? Thanks a lot. Hope your fancy dinner's as tasty as this cold salad we're choking down." I silenced the notifications. No response. No need to. No reason to. Back home, the dinner party was descending into quiet chaos. One of Evan's co-workers, a woman named Melissa, stepped inside, glanced at the table, and asked under her breath, "Is this like a rustic theme?" Mom forced a smile, lying out of habit. "Oh yes." A deliberate casual vibe. But her voice betrayed her. Every out-of-place detail on that table was like a silent slap, reminding her that the reliable background help she'd always counted on wasn't standing behind her anymore. I knew they were looking for me, scanning that house full of stiff smiles and half-hearted jokes. I knew Mom was running between plates and glasses, mentally cataloging everything still undone. I also knew that, somewhere in that house, Evan was probably smirking and telling someone I was being dramatic as usual. But this time, I didn't have to explain. I returned to my table where dessert had just arrived. A small chocolate mousse cake topped with fresh strawberries. I picked up the spoon, watched the candlelight shimmer against my wineglass, and I felt that not showing up had been the right choice. Across the city, that house would have to cope without the daughter who knew how to do everything. And maybe, just maybe, they'd realize no one carries everything forever. Not even Jennifer. The soft clink of my knife against the plate echoed in the warm space of Willow Creek. Yet all I could hear was silence. No shouting from the kitchen. No Evan grumbling. No one urging me to hurry up before the guests arrive. I took a sip of the 2019 Pinot Noir the server had suggested, smooth, laced with ripe cherry and a hint of gentle spice. It wasn't sweet in a way that begged for approval. It was subtle, honest. Like me now, finally living in alignment with my own emotions. An older couple 2 tables over raised their glasses in a toast. The woman, silver-hailed and elegant in a beige silk blouse, smiled brightly at the man across from her. He reached across the table and gently held her hand. No words passed between them, but their eyes held something I had never seen in my family: genuine presence. I slowly savored another bite of the chocolate mousse cake topped with strawberries, letting the cream melt on my tongue. There was no rush. No watching eyes making me sit straighter or fix my dress hem. When the server returned and asked if I'd like anything else, I just shook my head softly. "Thank you, I'd just like to sit a little longer." She smiled and walked away without pressure. I turned back to the window. Outside, the park across from the restaurant was lit now. A few cars rolled slowly across the brick-paved street, their taillights reflected in streaks of amber and red on the damp road, like watercolor. I unlocked my phone, not to check messages, just to glance at the time. 7:22 p.m. This time last year, I was scrubbing gravy splatters off the kitchen wall from the roast Evan had burned, while Mom pulled me aside and whispered, "Don't let the guests see this, Jennifer. You take care of it." I turned off the screen and placed the phone face down. It vibrated again. "Tell me more. Jennifer, I honestly don't understand what's going on. I was counting on you. You can't do this to me." I didn't open it. I didn't need to. Because I knew exactly what was going on. Jennifer, the one who had always lived in the blurry margins of family where every helpful act was just expected, was stepping out of that role. I wasn't abandoning them. I was simply reclaiming myself from a space they'd always kept me at the edges of. I raised my glass again, this time in a toast to myself. A quiet lift no one else witnessed, but maybe the most important one I've ever made. A group of young friends in the corner burst into laughter at a shared joke. The server brought them another tray of pastries, the air buzzing with energy, but not chaos. I felt like the world was larger than the four walls of my parents' house, where every role had been pre-assigned and I never got to redefine who I was. As I stood to pay, a woman at the next table offered me a kind smile and said quietly, "You look so at peace, dining alone. I admire that." I tilted my head slightly. "Thank you. I chose myself tonight." She nodded, her eyes warm with unspoken understanding. As I stepped out of the restaurant, the evening breeze brushed through my hair, carrying the scent of pine from the woods behind the park. I adjusted my scarf and walked along the stone path toward the parking lot. My phone buzzed again. This time, from Dad. "Jennifer, your mom's really stressed. Can you call back? We should talk later." I paused for a few seconds and looked up at the cloudy sky. No stars, but it wasn't as dark as I expected. I didn't delete the message. But I didn't reply either. Not out of anger, but because tonight, everything I needed to hear had come from within. I got into my car, settled into the driver's seat, and turned on the radio. A soft jazz tune played. No words, just rhythm and air. For the first time in years, I wasn't carrying home the bitter aftertaste of another family gathering. I was carrying the taste of chocolate mousse, the sound of quiet glass toasts, and the feeling of being heard. By myself. In the dining room of my parents' suburban home in Spokane, the warm glow from the chandelier couldn't hide the disorder splayed across every table and cold dish. The cream-colored tablecloth my mother grabbed hastily from the old linen closet was wrinkled and stained with faint marks. Maybe old coffee? Maybe sauce? Half-melted candles burned unevenly, their wax dripping down onto the glass coasters below. The appetizers, my usual bruschetta, were pulled out from the fridge far too late. The bread had gone soft, the tomatoes limp, the basil wilted sadly atop the cheese. Evan stood by the counter, holding an open beer he didn't drink, his eyes scanning the room as if searching for a way out. His co-workers, mostly young office professionals, were whispering to each other. A few had already left early, citing tomorrow's charity run as an excuse. A woman in a black dress forced a polite smile as my mother offered her more wine. The vibe here? It's different, kind of vintage, right? My mother tried to smile, but her cheeks were flushed with stress and embarrassment. "Oh. Yes. Things were a bit rushed today. My daughter..." She hesitated. Jennifer usually helps with this part, but this time she had other plans. The woman nodded courteously, then turned back to her group. My father stood quietly in the kitchen corner, staring at a crookedly folded napkin and a candle dripping wax sideways. He picked up the lighter I used to light those candles every holiday, then placed it down slowly, almost like realizing it wouldn't be used tonight, just like I wasn't. "Gary, I swear if Jennifer had arrived on time like usual, this table would look 10 times better," my mother muttered, trying to steady a tipped-over flower vase. Dad didn't answer right away. Then he looked her squarely in the eye. You thought all you had to do was call and she'd come running. You thought she'd always clean up after us, cover for Evan, fold napkins at Hotel Perfect without anyone even asking if she was tired. Are you blaming me? My mom snapped. I didn't do anything wrong. Jennifer's always been good at these things. I just trusted her. No, Dad said firmly, carrying disappointment in his voice. You treated her like a shadow, an invisible one, always there to fill the cracks this family left behind. Mom went quiet. A moment later, she lowered her head and wiped a splash of wine off the table with a trembling hand. Nobody said anything more. In the background, laughter trickled faintly from the last remaining guests. But their eyes were no longer on Evan. They glanced at the mess around them, forcing smiles as they politely excused themselves. By 8:30 p.m., nearly everyone had left. One of Evan's friends leaned in to whisper something that made him frown. Then he placed his drink down and disappeared upstairs. In the kitchen, only 3 remained: my mom, my dad, and a mountain of dirty dishes. The scent of cold food mingled with the faint smell of burnt candle wax and wilted basil. A few untouched slices of bread still sat on the platter. In the middle of the table, the flower vase leaned to one side, reminding everyone that not everything could be forced into place. Dad washed his hands and stared out the window, where the soft lights of Willow Creek reflected gently off the windshield of a parked car across the street. This is the first time she didn't come, he said quietly. And everything fell apart. Literally. Mom sat down, eyes fixed on the tablecloth, as if searching for an answer in its creases. But she said nothing. Her phone buzzed. A message. From me. Mom, I'm not angry, but I'm exhausted from being called in only to patch up everyone's messes. She read it, then laid the phone gently on the table. No one in the house spoke another word. And somewhere else in the city, I sat curled up on my couch, wrapped in a wool scarf, a cup of chamomile tea in hand. I didn't need to read their replies to know how they were feeling. That house no longer had me. And it wasn't a temporary absence. It was the clearest truth yet. They had lost something they thought would always be there with a snap of their fingers. Sunday morning, I woke up later than usual. Gentle sunlight streamed through the curtains, landing on the wooden floor where my shoes from the night before still sat neatly placed. In the kitchen, the kettle let out a soft whistle. I poured chamomile tea into a white porcelain cup and sat at the dining table by the window, overlooking the small park below. Everything felt unusually peaceful. No surprise obligations, no guilt for choosing myself, no barrage of requests. Just as I lifted the cup, my phone buzzed. A message from Dad. Sweetheart, I'm sorry for letting things get this far. If you're ready, can we sit down and talk? I set the cup down. I read that message again and again, not quite believing it came from my father. Gary Anderson. The reserved, composed man who had never once admitted fault within our family. Especially not to my mom. And certainly never to me. There was no cold tone, no deflection, no sidestepping. Just one simple sentence that softened something inside me. I thought back to last night. After leaving Willow Creek, I'd driven around the old neighborhood where I grew up. The tree-lined streets were just as quiet as I remembered, calm and somewhat indifferent. I had been part of that place, but never truly felt I belonged. What I didn't know then was that, back at the familiar house, Dad had been staring at a chaotic dinner table, Mom had sat frozen before a tilted candle, and Evan had slipped upstairs without a word. Maybe for the first time, they didn't have me to turn to, for blame, or for solutions. I didn't respond right away. Not out of anger, but because there were too many unspoken truths swelling like a lump in my throat. I spent the rest of the morning cleaning my apartment. Not because it was messy, but because I needed to do something for myself. Wiping down the kitchen counter, straightening my bookshelf, folding the blanket on the couch, each task helped me breathe again. like I was slowly piecing back together parts of myself that had been neglected for the sake of helping others. By early afternoon, I finally texted back. Okay, but I need you to really listen. No justifying, no brushing it off like always. His reply came in under 2 minutes. I promise. Just you and me. No mom, no Evan, just the two of us. That single message made my eyes sting. We arranged to meet Monday morning at a small cafe on the corner of Bellevue, where I'd once worked part-time in college. Dad knew the place. He had driven me there on my first day, bought me a cappuccino and said, "Welcome to the adult world." Maybe this meeting would mark another milestone. Not for me, but for him. I arrived 10 minutes early. The cafe was just as I remembered. Warm amber lights, the smell of cinnamon waffles and espresso hanging in the air. I chose a window seat, ordered a latte, and waited. At exactly 8 o'clock Aimuni, my dad walked in, wearing a light blue shirt, a dark canvas jacket, and an expression that looked a bit worn. When he saw me, he nodded, relieved, as if setting something heavy down. "Hi, Jennifer." I nodded. "Hi, Dad." He sat across from me, placing his hands on the table without reaching for the menu. After a long pause, he said, "Last night, your mom was pretty upset, but me, I just stayed quiet. Because I saw you doing something right. For you." I gripped my latte a little tighter but said nothing. "I'm sorry for not seeing it sooner," he continued. "For letting you become the one holding everything together while we kept causing the chaos." I looked up. No defensiveness. No excuses. Just truth. Bare and overdue. "I'm not angry you asked me to help," I said slowly. "I'm angry no one ever asked if I wanted to be part of it. I was just used when it was convenient. Then invisible again when it wasn't." Dad nodded, his eyes fixed on the tabletop. "I understand now, and I'm truly sorry. I didn't know if an apology could change anything. But in that moment, I felt seen. No longer just the dependable daughter, the quiet cleaner-upper, or the safe fallback. I was Jennifer. A person with feelings, limits, and worth. We sat in silence for a few more minutes. But it was the most peaceful silence I'd ever shared with him. And I believed that something real could change. Beginning with this quiet acknowledgement. 3 days after the talk with Dad, I got a message from Mom. "Jennifer, I know you're upset, but I really want to see you, just the two of us. If you're willing, I'd like to meet you for coffee at Sugar and Bloom tomorrow afternoon." I stared at the screen for a long time. Sugar and Bloom was the cafe Mom always bragged about to her friends, the place where she ordered vanilla lattes and sat for hours flipping through home decor magazines. Part of me wanted to say no, the hurt was still too raw. But another part wanted to hear what she had to say, now that there was no dinner table to hide behind and no Evan to shift the blame to. I texted back simply, "I'll be there, 3 o'clock. The next day, I arrived right on time. Mom was already seated at a window table, cradling a cappuccino, her eyes absent-mindedly watching the street. She wore a pale beige sweater and a silk scarf tied at the neck, her signature look when trying to stay composed under pressure. I walked over and gave a small nod. "Hey, Mom." She looked up and gave a tight smile. "Thank you for coming." I ordered a chamomile tea and sat across from her. A long silence stretched between us, between the woman who learned to keep quiet to avoid hurting anyone, and the woman who gave orders to keep everything under control. Mom spoke first, her voice surprisingly soft. "Jennifer, I've done a lot of thinking since the party, and I know I was wrong." I didn't say anything. I waited. To do with your outstanding work ethic? I got used to you being the one who made everything work. You always handled things without being asked, and maybe because of that, I started taking it for granted. I never stopped to ask if you wanted to be part of it, or even just treated like a regular family member. I gripped my teacup. I don't need to be the center of attention, Mom. But I also don't want to be the one always behind the scenes. For years, you only called on me when you needed tables set, food made, presents wrapped, messes cleaned up. But when the actual celebration began, I disappeared from the guest list. Do you know how that feels? Mom lowered her gaze. She didn't deflect. I continued, finally saying what I'd buried for so long. I grew up in that house, but I always felt like an outsider. Evan was the golden child. Always excused, always praised, no matter what he did wrong. I had to work twice as hard just to be noticed. And the minute I said no once, I was called irresponsible. Mom's eyes turned red, but her voice stayed calm. I played favorites, I know that. And I deeply regret it. Not just because you missed the party, but because I made you carry the weight of everything for too long, and no one noticed. Not even when you were tired. I exhaled slowly, a strange sense of calm settling over me. I don't need praise, I just want to be seen as a person. To be invited because I'm your daughter, not because I'm the most convenient one to assign tasks to. She nodded slowly. From now on, I won't assume you'll handle everything. And if we have another family gathering, I'll ask you if you'd like to come. Not to help, just to attend. As a real guest. I promise. We sat there, our drinks cooling. Without drama or tears. Just the quiet honesty of two women trying to peel away years of silence and armor. I nodded. I accept your apology. But you need to understand, I'm still learning to put myself first. And that won't change. I understand, she said, and I respect that. When we left Sugar and Bloom, I didn't hug her. But we walked side by side. The afternoon sun cast a warm glow over our shoulders. And for the first time, I felt something like equality between us. Not every wound heals at once. But that day, I knew this much. Mom finally saw me. Not as the fixer. Not as the daughter who should help. But as a whole person, with limits, emotions, and the right to be treated fairly. And for me, that was a beginning. 2 weeks after the talk at Sugar and Bloom, I received a message from Mom. The family is planning a lunch next Sunday. No special occasion, just to gather everyone. I want to invite you, truly invite you. And if you agree to come, I'd like to ask what dish you'd like me to prepare. I stared at the screen, blinking. No hint that I should come early to help. No checklist hidden behind sweetness. No implied duties. Just an invitation. Plain and honest. I replied, I'll come. Please make your roasted chicken lasagna, and this time, I'd like to sit down and eat like everyone else. A few minutes later she wrote back. Of course, sweetheart. That afternoon I arrived on time, not early. I didn't carry my usual tote bag filled with linens, scented candles, or extra serving dishes. Just a bottle of red wine and a store-bought apple tart from the bakery near my apartment, like any other guest would bring. When I walked in, the kitchen was still a little messy, cheese bubbling, roasted tomatoes filling the air, but no one panicked that I hadn't come early to fix it all. Mom stepped out from the kitchen with a bright smile and a kitchen towel in hand. You're here, the lasagna's almost ready. Want iced tea or red wine? I smiled. Red wine, please. I sat at the dining table, already set with fresh flowers and matching glasses. The tablecloth wasn't perfect. A few forks weren't aligned, but this time, I didn't feel the urge to fix everything like a showroom. It was warm. Human. Evan sat across from me. His glance was brief, no familiar smirk. You look good, he said, a little awkwardly. Mom said you liked apple tart. I brought one too, but it probably doesn't look as nice as yours. I was surprised, but didn't overreact. I just nodded. Thanks. It's not a competition, right? He chuckled softly and turned to pour himself more water. The meal was lighthearted. Mom wasn't frantically doing everything. Dad served each person, talking about his volunteer work at the community center. And me? I listened, smiled, and didn't once have to get up for someone's extra plate. After the main course, Mom gently placed a hand on my shoulder and whispered, "Stay seated. I'll clean up. Today, you're a guest." I almost didn't believe what I heard. But that feeling of being seen, included, truly warmed something in me. In the weeks that followed, change slowly became routine. One Thursday afternoon, Mom texted, "Thinking of trying cinnamon butter toast this weekend, do you think I should use unsalted or salted butter?" Another week, Dad called, "Mom and I are thinking of going to Oregon for Thanksgiving. Want to join? If so, would you prefer a cabin or hotel?" Every message, every time they asked my opinion, felt like little puzzle pieces restoring the place I thought I never had. I wasn't the person remembered, only when something needed fixing. I was someone considered before decisions were made. One evening, while brewing tea, I received a message from Evan. "I'm thinking of taking an extended break to study some management courses. Could you help me choose the right ones?" I stared at the text, unsure whether to laugh or be surprised. Evan, who used to dismiss everything I said, now asked for my advice? Maybe he wasn't completely changed. But, I realized, people only start respecting you when they're forced to see your worth. I know that one meal, one apology, or a few thoughtful texts can't undo years of feeling overlooked. But I also understand now, every small step is part of a new journey. A journey where, this time, I'm not walking behind the scenes, but moving forward as a grown woman who knows she deserves respect and refuses to return to being invisible. A crisp October morning, I opened my laptop, slid my wooden chair closer to the window, and clicked on the tab I'd bookmarked 3 months ago. 10-day Greece tour. Explore Santorini and Athens. Just beneath the title, the words, "Only 3 spots left," flashed in soft red. I didn't hesitate. I booked the trip. Not to escape, but to mark a beginning. I chose to do something just for myself, without asking permission, without checking if it clashed with a family event, or if anyone needed anything from me. And I exhaled. Like shedding a heavy coat I'd worn for so long I forgot it was there. Since that lunch at my mom's, my family had gradually started treating me with more fairness. But what I learned was even more important. I wasn't obligated to keep doing something just because that's how it's always been. I began setting boundaries. Not with loud declarations, but with quiet, consistent choices. A week later, Mom texted, "Can you come early to help with Uncle Frank's dinner? I'm a bit overwhelmed with dessert." I replied, "I'd be happy to come, but I'll arrive at 6:30 as a guest. If you need help, maybe hiring someone would ease your stress." A minute passed. 2. Then she wrote, "You're right, I'll get help. Just come and enjoy yourself." I knew she was a little disappointed, but she didn't guilt-trip me. I didn't feel like I owed her an apology for prioritizing myself. I signed up for Tuesday and Friday morning yoga. Before, that schedule would have been constantly postponed for last-minute family things. Not anymore. If someone called during class, I didn't answer. My life finally had non-negotiable hours. I also began writing again, not emails or legal briefs, but personal blog posts about my journey out of the dutiful daughter role. The first post was titled, "It's not rebellion. It's living honestly." It was shared hundreds of times in 2 days. I received messages from women I'd never met, daughters, wives, mothers, all exhausted from carrying invisible weight like I had. One Saturday evening, while reading on my couch, Evan called. "Jennifer, I know this is weird, but I'm planning my birthday without Mom, organizing it for the first time. I don't know whether to rent a restaurant or just use the backyard. What do you think?" I smiled. "If you want it simple, a restaurant's easier, but if you want something more intimate, the backyard works. Just don't let Mom do it all." "I'm handling it myself," I want to do it on my own this time. Then you've grown a lot, I said genuinely, not mockingly. By November, I was preparing for Santorini. I bought a new suitcase, booked a sunset sailboat tour, and learned a few basic Greek phrases. Mom texted, "Remember to stay warm, drink plenty of water, and send me pictures." I replied, "Don't worry, but this time, the pictures are for me." He only responded with a heart emoji. The day I flew out, I wore a caramel-colored coat I treated myself to earlier that fall. In my pocket were my plane ticket, passport, and a small journal for travel notes. At the gate, I checked my phone and saw a message from Dad. "We're proud of you. For the first time, I see you living for yourself. Have an amazing trip." I didn't reply immediately. I just stared at the message, feeling my heart settle. Quiet as wind over open sea. I had once been a girl who lived to please everyone but herself. But now, I was a woman rewriting the script of her life. Not to make others happy, but to finally, truly live. Jennifer's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes, the bravest thing you can do isn't sacrificing for others, but learning to say no to protect yourself. Only when we stop trying to please everyone and start setting boundaries do people truly see our worth. Jennifer didn't just reclaim respect from her family, she found freedom and agency in her life. Something so many of us quietly long for every single day. What do you think about Jennifer's journey? Have you ever found yourself in a situation like hers? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to follow the channel to keep exploring more heartfelt stories about family and life.